Hello and welcome to Billy's Craft Room. In today's film I'm going to show you how to add dimension to your bracelet using golden fluid acrylic paint. The colour I'm using is diazonine purple. I'm working on a tin plate for my palette. Squeeze some paint onto a clean area of the plate. I'm going to be using a small piece of cast sponge to apply the paint. Using a clean area of the sponge, dab into the paint and tap off the excess paint on a spare area of the plate. I'm dabbing onto the edge of the bracelet. This gives a textured effect to the paint. This is colouring the extreme edge of the bracelet, but I'm also bringing the paint over onto the top face of the bracelet as well. Continue to apply the paint in this way. If, as I did just there, you find you have too much paint applied in a particular area, if you use a clean area of the sponge and dab onto it while the paint is still wet, it is possible to blend it away. Continue to work your way all around the sides of the bracelet. You will notice a different effect depending on how much paint you have on your sponge and how dry the paint is. As paint dries on the sponge, you do get a much softer, lighter application of paint. Gradually work your way along all the sides of the bracelet, being careful not to smudge areas that may still be wet. I'm starting to bring the paint further onto the front face of the bracelet and dabbing in any areas that I missed earlier. As you can see, that creates a nice frame to the bracelet. Now the paint's had time to dry off a little on the sponge, I'm tapping onto an area of the palette where there's a very light amount of paint, not to the full drop of paint there. By applying the paint in this way, only a small amount of paint goes on and you just get a textured effect. If you want to pick up the embossing areas, if you've used an embossed type of grunge board, if you use more pressure, you will pick up the embossed patterning. Continue until you have an effect that you like. It's difficult to see in this light. I think you can see the darker texturing that purple paint has applied over the bracelet. I'm just going back in now and applying some additional paint to bring that darker colour further over onto the front edge of the bracelet. As you can see, this has now coloured the edges of the bracelet and left us with a nice background. Because I wanted to increase the border on the side of the bracelet, I'm now applying a little more paint further into the bracelet. Like all projects in this style, it is personal preference, but I'm looking for a reasonable size border for this project. Tapping the paint on like that does give you a nice textured effect though. And you can see there that border is more pronounced now. You can just let this air dry, but because there's quite a lot of paint on there, to speed the process up, I'm using a heat tool to dry that paint. It just speeds the process up a little. As we mentioned earlier in the project, don't be alarmed if your grunge board does flex and curl as you heat it. This is normal for grunge board and it won't damage the project. Just be careful when you handle the grunge board though, because it does get quite hot. For links to suppliers for any of the products used in this film, please visit the blog. If you've enjoyed this film or have any questions, do leave me a comment. Thanks for watching. See you soon. For more inspiration, please visit the blog on www.billiescraftroom.wordpress.com.